I'd like you all to take a moment and think about your daughter, or if you don't have a daughter, to imagine you do. I'd like you to imagine one day coming home and something seeming wrong. You can't quite put your finger on it. Maybe she's just slow or sickly. Something is wrong though, but it's late and you decide it can wait till the morning. In the morning, you're awoken by her screams. She's crying out over and over again, screaming, "I can't move my legs. I can't even feel my legs." Heart pounding, you rush to her bedside. You're faced with a helpless situation. All you can do is call 911 and wait for the ambulance. When it arrives, you're forced to wait in the back, looking at your once bright and happy daughter, now pallid and frightened on the stretcher. Arrival at the hospital initiates arduous tests. A doctor takes a pin and pokes your daughter up each leg until she winces in pain. Finally, she winces as the pin pricks her waist. She can't feel anything below her waist. You wait days for a diagnosis, and finally the results come back. She has polio. The doctor tells you your daughter will never walk again. Now faced with this information, you realize how long the road ahead of you is. Many think a tragic scene like this could have only taken place in the 1950s and 60s, but if vaccines are ignored, it could easily become commonplace again. The controversy surrounding vaccines cannot go unresolved, as it affects not only us, but also our children, and our children's children, and every generation to follow. There are 4 primary types of vaccines. Of these 4, only one has any chance of causing an infection, and this chance is very, very slim. Vaccines have long been subject to controversy, despite decades of results. This came to a head in 1998 when The Lancet published an article by Andrew Wakefield. In this article, Wakefield claimed to have found a link between vaccines and autism. However, this article was retracted in 2010 due to unethical testing, heavily biased researchers, funding from groups that stood to gain significantly from the findings, and various other misconduct. Despite this, many still believe that vaccines can cause autism. I'd like you all to reflect for a moment that through the eradication of smallpox, vaccines have saved over 175 million lives since 1980. Millions more have likely been saved by vaccines for other deadly diseases. Although some Christians would say that vaccines are not that parents do not have cause to vaccinate their children, vaccinating one's children against diseases that cause long-term suffering or death is the duty of every Christian parent. Vaccines save lives, and Christians must consider the goods of their society, including public health. My thesis concerns only diseases that cause long-term suffering or death. The former of these terms can be defined as diseases that cause permanent or semi-permanent loss of function, such as paralysis or blindness. This term also includes diseases that can cause an incredible amount of pain for long periods of time. Examples of these include fibromyalgia, multiple sclerosis, and hepatitis B. Diseases such as chickenpox will not be included, as chickenpox neither has a high mortality rate nor does it cause long-term suffering to those afflicted. Hepatitis B will be included, despite being a sexually transmitted disease. Sexually transmitted diseases fall within Christian doctrine to treat, and hepatitis B greatly increases one's odds of contracting liver diseases that can prove fatal. Vaccines are a mercy from God that help to mitigate the effects of the fall through rooting out disease and preventing a premature death. This aspect of them can be compared to an epidural given to a woman in labor. Just as humankind is cursed to die, so too is woman cursed to feel pain in childbirth. However, an epidural provides a partial mitigation of this curse. Curses are generally accepted to not be permanent institutions, and that at some point God will, at least partially, revoke these curses. In the same way, vaccines are a partial mitigation of the effects of the fall. Initially, however, it would seem that this advantage only applies to those who can take vaccines. There is a small percentage of the population who is immunocompromised or has a weakened immune system. These people can't take vaccines due to various medical risks. However, we do not see this small percentage walking around with diseases such as polio or smallpox. This is due to herd immunity. Herd immunity is a phenomenon in which, if enough of the population is vaccinated against a disease, the remainder can't be affected by the disease, as it can't even reach them. Christians not only need to be happy about herd immunity, but need to help create it. Christians have a duty to look out for the public welfare of their society, and this is an excellent way to do it. Jonathan Edwards, a prominent 18th century theologian and pastor, said that Christians need to look out for the goods of their society, including public health. This is further backed up by Leviticus 13, 45 through 46, in which God lays down specific commands with how to deal with the leprosy outbreak. Clearly, public health has long been a concern for the followers of the one true God, and it should continue to be so. Christians cannot erode the protection that herd immunity provides. To do so would be to leave the weakest of our society at further risk of dangerous diseases. If a single cog in a machine fails, the rest of the machine will inevitably fail. In much the same way, if Christians refuse to participate in vaccines in creating herd immunity, the rest of herd immunity could fail. Some claim that vaccines cause autism, primarily due to the Wakefield article mentioned previously. However, many studies have been undertaken to test this. The overwhelming consensus is that there is no link between vaccines and autism. To give you perspective as to how wild and unfounded this claim is, the Wakefield article tested 12 children. All the other studies have tested well over 10,000 children, and collectively have tested over 1 million children. Clearly, the belief that vaccines and autism are linked is an unfounded belief. Many parents fear that vaccines can impart dangerous side effects. This is only intensified by widely reported stories in the media. However, parents should not be persuaded. Though there is a literal 1 in a million chance of a dangerous side effect occurring, we cannot allow this to cause us to look away from vaccines. To do so would be to face an exponentially greater risk in the future. We cannot let the loud weeping of a few drown out the laughter of the millions who have been spared a terrible and painful death through vaccines. Since this thesis is directed at Christians, I must address the involvement of vaccines and abortion. Some of you may know about this, but for those of you who don't, I'll catch you all up to speed. Essentially, vaccines are killed viruses, but in order to cultivate these viruses, we need human cells. In order to obtain these cells, doctors took aborted fetal cells and manipulated them so that they reproduce infinitely. This took place in the 1960s. Since then, we have had no need for more aborted fetal tissue. Even further, the fetal tissue that was taken was from a baby that would have been aborted regardless. Vaccines do not cause abortions, and they never will. I can say this with complete confidence. Further, both Catholic and Protestant ethics groups have said that these vaccines are permissible. Even further, if you still aren't convinced, these types of vaccines are being gradually removed and replaced with vaccines that do not use these cell lines. Nowadays, we don't need to worry about diseases such as polio or smallpox. Vaccines have eradicated smallpox and have nearly done the same to polio. We've been gifted the luxury of a world where we do not have to worry about diseases as much. However, we cannot let this luxury cause us to turn our backs on the very thing that allows such a luxury. To do so would be to invite dangerous diseases back into our households, and we cannot allow this. If ever you doubt the value of vaccines, I urge you to look at pictures of polio wards. See rows of children in iron lungs, struggling to breathe through the paralysis that grips their bodies. I implore you all, remember that vaccines not only affect you, not only affect your children, but every generation to come after you. Thank you.